Imagine for a moment that every person you meet is like a book. Some books have covers that perfectly match the story inside. What you see is what you get. Others have covers so dazzling that you can't resist picking them up, only to find that the inside pages are hollow, the words inconsistent, the story shallow. And then there are books so plain on the outside that you might overlook them, yet inside lies wisdom, depth, and richness you could never have imagined. The challenge in life is figuring out which book you're holding before you decide to let it sit on your shelf, or worse, let it define your story. This video is about exactly that: how to detect fake people in your life, not through shallow judgment, but through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology. Jung believed that human behavior is rarely random. The things people do and say, even the things they try to hide, are clues to their inner truth. By learning to recognize these patterns, you can protect yourself from manipulation, dishonesty, and shallow relationships while building genuine connections with people who are authentic. Before we dive in, let me share with you the key points we'll explore in this journey together. First, we'll talk about how Jung defined the concept of the persona, the mask people wear to appear acceptable to society, and why it's often the first sign of fakery. Second, we'll explore the subtle behaviors that reveal when someone is not who they pretend to be, from inconsistencies in their words and actions to the hidden motives behind their charm. Third, we'll look at Jung's insights into projection, why fake people often accuse others of traits they secretly carry themselves. Fourth, we'll uncover the emotional impact of keeping such people close, and how they drain your energy while disguising it as friendship. And finally, we'll discuss how to apply Jung's method in your daily life, so you can surround yourself with authenticity, detect manipulation early, and reclaim your peace of mind. This won't be a dry lecture. Think of it as a narrative journey, where stories, examples, and psychological insights blend together, so that by the end you won't just understand the theory, you'll know how to use it in real life. Now, let's begin with Jung's idea of the persona. Jung once said, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is." In other words, the persona is a mask we put on when we step into the world. For example, when you're at work, you might wear the mask of the confident professional, even though inside you feel insecure. When you're at a family dinner, you might wear the mask of the responsible child, the one who has everything under control, even if your life is quietly falling apart. This mask is not always fake. It can be necessary. Without it, society would be chaotic. We all need roles, ways to interact, a form of social etiquette. But here's where the danger lies. Some people confuse the mask with reality. They become so invested in their persona that they lose touch with their real self, and others deliberately manipulate their mask to hide their true intentions. This is the heart of fakery, when the mask is not just a tool, but a lie. Think of someone you've met who seemed perfect at first glance. They always said the right things, laughed at the right times, and appeared to be exactly the kind of person you wanted in your life. But with time, something fell off. Maybe their actions didn't match their words. Maybe their kindness had strings attached. Maybe they agreed with everyone, but stood for nothing themselves. That sense of discomfort you felt wasn't paranoia. It was your intuition recognizing the mask. Jung would say your unconscious was picking up on the dissonance between their persona and their true self. Fake people often over-rely on their persona because, deep down, they fear being seen. To them, authenticity is dangerous. If people saw their insecurity, selfishness, or emptiness, they might reject them. So they hide behind layers of charm, flattery, and imitation. But if you watch closely, the mask always cracks. The trick is learning where to look. One place to look is consistency. Jung emphasized that the self, our true nature, is not chaotic. Even if we are complex, our authentic behaviors align over time. A fake person, on the other hand, struggles to maintain consistency because their persona is a performance. They say one thing to one person and the opposite to another. They claim loyalty but gossip behind your back. They project confidence in public but reveal bitterness in private, like an actor forgetting their lines. They cannot keep the show going forever. Let me give you an example. Imagine a colleague who constantly praises teamwork and collaboration, presenting themselves as a unifier. Yet when promotions are discussed, they subtly sabotage others, spreading rumors or downplaying their contributions. Their mask is the team player, but their actions reveal self-interest. Jung would say this person is stuck in their persona, unwilling to face the shadow, the hidden, selfish part of themselves they deny. To spot fakeness, you must learn to pay more attention to what people do than what they say. Actions are rooted in the unconscious, harder to control, and therefore more honest. Another way to detect fakery is through the lens of projection. Jung described projection as the act of attributing to others the qualities we dislike or deny in ourselves. Fake people are masters of this. They accuse others of dishonesty while lying themselves. They label others as selfish while secretly pursuing their own advantage. They might call you too emotional, when in reality they are the ones unable to regulate their feelings. When someone frequently points fingers without introspection, it's often a sign that they are revealing more about themselves than about you. But why does this matter? Why should you invest so much energy into detecting fake people? Because the cost of keeping them close is enormous. Jung believed that the psyche thrives on authenticity. When you're surrounded by people who are false, your mind is constantly at war. You doubt yourself, second-guess your instincts, and carry the weight of someone else's performance. Fake people drain you not always through direct harm, but through the subtle erosion of trust and truth. They create an atmosphere where you cannot relax, because on some level, you know something is wrong. Consider this. Have you ever been in a friendship where you walked away from a conversation feeling exhausted, confused, or strangely empty? That's not normal. Genuine connections should feel nourishing, even if the topics are heavy. When you consistently feel drained, it's a sign that the person is not showing up authentically. Jung would argue that your unconscious is warning you. The energy you sense is the clash between truth and illusion. Now, here's the powerful part. Jung's method for detecting fake people is not about becoming paranoid, nor about cutting everyone off at the first sign of imperfection. It's about learning to listen to both your reason and your intuition. It's about becoming a student of human nature, so you can see beyond the masks and into the heart of the person in front of you. Think of it this way. Fake people are like actors on a stage, but life is not a play. If you sit in the audience long enough, watching carefully, you'll notice when the costume doesn't fit, when the lines sound rehearsed, when the emotions don't match the script. That's your moment of clarity, the moment you can choose whether to keep playing along or step away. As we continue, we'll dive deeper into these signs, exploring the subtle cues that reveal a person's truth. We'll talk about the way fake people use charm, the cracks in their storytelling, the way they mirror your behavior to gain acceptance, and how to distinguish between a normal social persona and dangerous deception. By the end, you'll have a toolkit drawn from Jung's psychology, one that doesn't just help you spot fakery, but also guides you toward authentic living yourself. Because the best defense against fake people is becoming so deeply authentic that their masks can't hold power over you. The more you begin to observe people through Jung's lens, the more you notice that fakery is rarely loud or obvious. It isn't always the scheming villain twirling his mustache or the outright liar whose words contradict themselves in every sentence. More often, fake people operate in subtle ways that slip under your awareness until one day you realize you've been pulled into their performance. That's why Jung stressed the importance of developing awareness, not just of others, but of yourself. If you are unconscious of your own needs, insecurities, and projections, you become the perfect audience for someone else's mask. Let's look closely at some of the psychological signs that reveal a person isn't genuine. One of the first indicators is overcompensation. Jung noted that people often display exaggerated traits to cover up what they lack. The insecure person brags constantly about achievements. The one who feels powerless seeks control in every small interaction. The person who secretly doesn't care about you may smother you with fake concern. At first, it can feel flattering. Who doesn't enjoy praise or attention? But look deeper. Does their behavior feel balanced? Or does it feel like they are trying too hard? Authentic people don't need to overdo it because they are at peace with themselves. Fake people, however, cannot stop performing because silence would expose their emptiness. Another clue lies in how they handle boundaries. Jung believed that authenticity requires respecting the individuality of others. Fake people, on the other hand, struggle with boundaries because they view relationships as tools for self-gain. If you've ever had someone who only shows up when they need something, or who becomes irritated when you assert your limits, you've seen this pattern. They're not invested in you as a person. They're invested in what they can extract from you. Watch for this. When you say no, do they respect you, or do they react with guilt-tripping, anger, or manipulation? The mask often slips when they don't get what they want. Mirroring is another tactic often used by fake people. Jung observed that we naturally adapt ourselves in social settings, but there's a difference between healthy adaptation and calculated imitation. A fake person will often study you, pick up your interests, your phrases, even your emotional rhythms, and reflect them back to you. At first, it feels like magic. Wow, this person just gets me. But with time, you'll notice the hollowness. They mirror not out of genuine connection, but out of strategy. They want you to trust them quickly, to lower your guard, and to feel as though you've found a kindred spirit. But notice how little they reveal about themselves. Notice how their stories shift, depending on the audience. Like a chameleon, they change colors to survive, but the core remains hidden. Let me give you a story to illustrate. A woman named Sarah once described a friendship that seemed perfect. The friend always agreed with her, liked the same movies, claimed to share the same struggles, and offered endless support. But one day, Sarah realized she knew almost nothing about her friend's actual life. Whenever she asked questions, the answers were vague or quickly redirected. Over time, she noticed inconsistencies in the friend's stories, details that didn't line up. Eventually, Sarah learned that her so-called friend had been using the friendship to gain access to her professional network. The mirroring was just a mask designed to build trust quickly. Sarah had been interacting with a persona, not a real person. This is why Jung's idea of projection is so crucial. Fake people, because they are cut off from their authentic self, cannot bear to face their own flaws. Instead, they see those flaws in others. If they are dishonest, they assume others are lying. If they are selfish, they accuse others of being self-centered. If they crave admiration, they criticize others for seeking attention. Projection is a defense mechanism. It allows them to maintain their mask by pushing their shadow onto others. The irony is that by listening carefully to what fake people accuse others of, you can often uncover the very traits they are hiding within themselves. But here's where things get tricky. Projection isn't just something fake people do, it's something we all do. Jung warned that without self-awareness, we too become blind to our shadow, blaming others for what we secretly carry. This means detecting fake people isn't just about watching them. It's also about watching yourself. Ask, am I seeing this person clearly, or am I projecting my own fears onto them? Am I accusing them of being fake because they really are, or because I am uncomfortable with my own masks? This self-reflection not only protects you from false accusations, but also sharpens your ability to discern real fakery when it appears. Another important pattern is emotional leakage. No matter how well someone wears a mask, emotions eventually betray them. Jung noted that the unconscious always finds a way to express itself through slips of the tongue, sudden bursts of anger, or body language that contradicts the words. Fake people can rehearse their lines, but they can't fully control their unconscious. Watch their eyes when they speak, their tone when they are under pressure, the subtle smirk when someone else fails, the irritation when attention shifts away from them. These are the cracks where the shadow seeps through. For example, a fake friend might celebrate your success publicly with applause, but if you look closely, their smile doesn't reach their eyes. Or they quickly shift the conversation back to themselves. Or they offer faint praise that subtly undermines you. Wow, that's amazing. I never thought someone like you could achieve that. These are not accidents. They are glimpses of envy, of insecurity, of the real person behind the mask. Jung would say the unconscious is speaking louder than the persona. Now, let's talk about the emotional cost of keeping fake people close. Jung often emphasized that the psyche longs for wholeness, for integration. To live authentically is to bring your inner self into alignment with your outer life. When you are surrounded by fakeness, however, this integration becomes almost impossible. You find yourself second-guessing, doubting, and adapting to their performance. Instead of living freely, you begin playing roles in their drama. Over time, this drains your energy. Why? Because authenticity is energy efficient. It takes no effort to be yourself. But fakery is exhausting, both for the person wearing the mask and for those forced to interact with it. You start carrying the weight of confusion, trying to reconcile their words with their actions, their persona with the truth you sense underneath. Jung described this tension as psychic conflict, and it can manifest as stress, anxiety, or even physical exhaustion. Let's make this practical. Have you ever had a conversation where you walked away feeling like you had to replay every word, trying to figure out what was real? That is the psychic cost of engaging with a fake person. Compare it to being with someone genuine, where even disagreements feel clarifying rather than draining. The contrast is stark. One relationship steals your clarity, the other deepens it. Here's another sign. Fake people often use charm as a weapon. Jung believed that charisma can be authentic, but in the hands of a manipulator, it becomes a mask. A fake person knows how to flatter, how to make you feel special, how to create the illusion of intimacy quickly. But genuine intimacy takes time. If someone seems to be moving too fast, showering you with attention, gifts, or exaggerated closeness, it's often a red flag. They are trying to hook you emotionally before you have time to notice the cracks in their mask. Jung would encourage us to slow down, to give relationships the gift of time. Masks cannot last forever. If you allow space, the performance eventually reveals itself. Fake people grow restless when they are not constantly admired or when they can't control the narrative. Watch how they react to silence, to patience, to boundaries. These moments expose more truth than any speech. The final piece of this puzzle is understanding why some of us repeatedly attract fake people. Jung believed that we unconsciously seek out relationships that mirror our inner world. If you often find yourself surrounded by shallow or manipulative people, it might be worth asking, what part of me is unconsciously drawn to this dynamic? Perhaps you fear confrontation, so you tolerate inauthenticity. Perhaps you crave approval, so you attract those who exploit that need. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming your power. Once you see the pattern, you can break it. Authenticity, Jung said, is contagious. The more authentic you become, the less tolerance you have for fakery. It's like tuning your ear to a specific frequency. Once you've heard the sound of truth, false notes become glaringly obvious. You don't need to argue, expose, or fight with fake people. You simply stop giving them energy because you know that what is false cannot sustain itself without an audience. And that is perhaps the greatest gift of Jung's method. Detecting fake people isn't about becoming a cynic who trusts no one. It's about becoming so grounded in your own authenticity that you naturally recognize when others are not aligned with theirs. It's about developing a quiet confidence where you can interact with anyone without losing your center because you no longer mistake the mask for the person. The real challenge with detecting fake people isn't just recognizing them. It's knowing what to do once you do. Carl Jung never suggested we should run through life, cutting people off at the first sign of imperfection. That would be impossible, and frankly, unfair. Every person wears a persona at times, and all of us have moments where we fail to live authentically. The problem arises when the mask becomes the whole identity, when someone refuses to integrate their shadow and insists on living through manipulation, projection, and lies. In those cases, you need a clear method not only to identify them, but also to protect yourself without being consumed by their performance. The first step is cultivating self-awareness. Jung stressed that if you are unconscious of your own motives, you'll never clearly see those of others. This means regularly asking yourself hard questions. What masks do I wear? Do I exaggerate qualities to hide my insecurities? Do I project flaws onto others that I secretly fear in myself? The more honest you are about your own persona and shadow, the sharper your vision becomes. When you know what your own masks look like, it becomes easier to see when someone else is hiding behind theirs. This isn't just theory, it's practice. For example, keep a journal of your daily interactions. Write down moments where you felt uneasy with someone's words or actions. Then ask, was that discomfort about them, or was it something in me? Over time, patterns emerge. Maybe you notice that certain people always leave you doubting yourself, or that you consistently excuse someone's behavior because you don't want to face the truth. Jung believed the unconscious reveals itself in patterns. The more you study them, the more prepared you are to see through fakery. The second step is slowing down your trust. Jung once remarked that the unconscious cannot be rushed. It reveals itself in time. Fake people rely on speed. They want to win your trust before you've had the chance to notice their cracks. This is why charm is their favorite weapon. It disarms you. The antidote is patience. Instead of rushing into relationships, whether friendships, romances, or business partnerships, give them time. Watch how they behave not just in moments of calm, but in moments of stress, disappointment, and conflict. The persona is easiest to maintain when everything is smooth. The shadow leaks out when life gets hard. For instance, imagine someone new in your life who showers you with compliments, makes you feel understood, and seems too good to be true. Instead of surrendering to that illusion, create space. Notice how they react when you set a boundary or say no. Notice how they behave when the attention shifts away from them. Do they remain steady, or do they become passive-aggressive, cold, or manipulative? These moments tell you more about their authenticity than 100 words of flattery. The third step is learning to read contradictions. Jung was fascinated by paradoxes in human behavior, and he believed that contradictions often point to hidden truths. Fake people struggle with consistency because their persona is a performance. If you want to detect them, listen closely for dissonance between what they say and what they do, between their words and their tone, between their public image and their private behavior. Authenticity doesn't require perfection, but it does produce coherence. When someone's actions and words line up over time, that's a sign of integrity. When they constantly contradict themselves, It's a red flag. Let's make this tangible. Suppose a colleague constantly talks about integrity, yet you see them bending rules when convenient. Or a friend preaches loyalty, yet disappears when you need them. Or a partner claims to value honesty, yet withholds basic truths about their life. These contradictions aren't just slips, they're windows into the shadow. Jung would say the unconscious cannot lie forever. Pay attention to those moments. They reveal the person behind the mask. The fourth step is tuning into your intuition. Jung placed enormous value on intuition as a function of the psyche. He believed that the unconscious communicates through feelings, images, and subtle impressions long before the rational mind catches on. That strange sense of discomfort you feel around someone, that's your psyche picking up on the dissonance between their persona and their reality. The mistake most people make is ignoring it. We rationalize, we excuse, we silence our inner voice because we don't want to seem judgmental. But intuition is not paranoia, it's data. It's your unconscious noticing patterns too subtle for the conscious mind to articulate. Start practicing this. After an interaction with someone, pause and ask yourself, how do I feel? If you consistently feel drained, confused, or unsettled, don't dismiss it. That's your psyche warning you. Jung often said, the psyche knows no lies. Your unconscious doesn't fabricate discomfort out of nowhere. The more you listen to it, the more you strengthen your ability to spot fakery early. The fifth step is setting firm but quiet boundaries. One of the most common traps with fake people is getting pulled into confrontation. When you realize someone isn't authentic, the instinct might be to call them out, to expose their mask, to demand honesty. But Jung would warn against this. The persona is deeply defended, and confronting it directly often leads to denial, defensiveness, or manipulation. Instead, protect your energy by quietly limiting your involvement. Distance doesn't need to be dramatic. You simply reduce your availability, your trust, your emotional investment. Fake people thrive on attention. Without it, their power over you diminishes. For example, if you recognize a friend is using you for convenience, stop volunteering your energy. Don't offer more than you're comfortable with. If a colleague manipulates through flattery, stop feeding into it. Keep interactions polite, but professional. You don't need to expose them. You just need to stop participating in their performance. Over time, you'll notice something interesting. Fake people drift away when they can no longer extract value. The sixth step is building a circle of authenticity. Jung believed that surrounding yourself with genuine people strengthens your own wholeness. When you are in the company of authenticity, you feel safe enough to be yourself. You grow because you no longer waste energy doubting motives. This is why detecting fake people is not just about avoidance. It's about attraction. The more you live authentically, the more you naturally attract those who resonate with that truth. Think of authenticity like a frequency. Fake people operate on the frequency of performance, constantly adjusting to maintain their mask. Authentic people operate on the frequency of truth. When you are tuned to your own truth, you naturally align with others who share it. That doesn't mean everyone will be perfect. It means you'll feel a deep coherence in their presence, a sense that who they are inside matches what they show outside. These are the people who nourish your soul, who help you integrate your own shadow, who allow you to rest in honesty. The seventh step is practicing compassionate detachment. Jung knew that even fake people are not evil monsters. They are individuals deeply afraid of their own shadow. Their masks are survival mechanisms, built to protect them from rejection, shame, or inner emptiness. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it explains it. When you understand this, you can detach without bitterness. You don't need to hate them or seek revenge. You simply recognize that they are unwilling to face their truth, and you choose to protect your own. Imagine it like walking through a theater. Some actors are so deep in character, they forget the play isn't real. You don't need to drag them off the stage. You simply walk out of the theater. That's what compassionate detachment looks like. You protect your peace without feeding resentment. You let go, knowing that only they can choose to remove their mask, and until they do, no relationship with them will ever be authentic. Finally, the 8th step is to embody authenticity yourself. Jung taught that the best way to deal with the shadows of others is to integrate your own. The more honest you are about your fears, your flaws, your insecurities, the less likely you are to be deceived by fakery. Why? Because masks no longer tempt you. You don't crave approval so desperately that you ignore red flags. You don't fear rejection so intensely that you accept manipulation. You stand firm in your truth, and in that place, fake people lose their grip. This is the deeper lesson of Jung's method. The goal is not merely to detect fake people, but to live so authentically that their presence no longer unsettles you. You become grounded, intuitive, discerning, and free. And that freedom is worth more than exposing every mask or confronting every lie. If you've followed this journey so far, you now understand how fake people operate, why they wear masks, how projection and inconsistency give them away, and how you can protect your energy through awareness, patience, and boundaries. But Jung's method doesn't stop at defense. His deeper vision was transformation, turning encounters with fakery into opportunities to strengthen your own authenticity. Because in the end, the question is not only, how do I detect fake people, but also, how do I make sure I'm not living a fake life myself? Let's imagine this in practical terms. You walk into a social setting, perhaps a workplace, a gathering, or even an online space. You notice someone who seems magnetic. They say all the right things, they appear confident, and others are drawn to them. Jung would advise you not to rush to judgment, neither to assume they are genuine, nor to assume they are fake. Instead, you observe. You listen to your own intuition. You watch for coherence between their words and actions over time. You stay grounded in yourself. In this way, you are not only spotting fakery, but also refusing to become a passive audience to it. This is the first lesson of integration. Become an observer rather than a reactor. Fake people thrive when you react, when you are flattered, when you are manipulated, when you are provoked. But when you step into the role of the observer, you shift the power dynamic. You stop feeding their mask with your energy. You begin to see the person clearly. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." By observing without being pulled in, you make their unconscious games visible, and suddenly you are no longer trapped by them. The second lesson is to treat every mask you encounter as a mirror. Ask yourself, why did this person's fakery bother me so much? What in me responded to it? Did I feel disappointed because I expected too much too soon? Did I feel manipulated because I secretly crave validation? Did I feel angry because I, too, wear masks and don't want to see that reflected back at me? Jung believed that encounters with others are always opportunities to meet our own shadow. Fake people, unpleasant as they may be, can become teachers, showing us the parts of ourselves we still need to integrate. For example, if you notice that you often attract people who flatter you excessively, perhaps your shadow is a hunger for approval. If you find yourself repeatedly drained by manipulative colleagues, perhaps your shadow is an inability to set boundaries. Recognizing this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it empowers you. You realize you're not helpless. You can change the pattern by changing yourself. This is the essence of Jung's psychology. Transformation begins within. The third lesson is to cultivate authenticity as a daily practice. Jung didn't believe authenticity meant oversharing or being brutally honest in every moment. It meant alignment, bringing your outer life closer to your inner truth. Ask yourself simple questions each day. Am I saying what I truly mean? Am I acting in line with my values? Or am I performing for approval? Am I facing my fears? Or am I hiding them behind a persona? Small choices build authenticity over time. Saying no when you mean no. Speaking up when something matters. Admitting when you're wrong. These moments, though they may feel uncomfortable, strip away your own mask and make you less vulnerable to the masks of others. One of Jung's most powerful insights was that authenticity attracts authenticity. When you live honestly, you naturally gravitate toward people who do the same. And the reverse is also true. Fake people often avoid those who are deeply authentic because they sense they cannot control or manipulate them. Your authenticity becomes a silent shield. You don't need to argue, accuse, or expose anyone. You simply live so truthfully that falsehood finds no place to stick. The fourth lesson is learning to let go without drama. Many people struggle with this. Once they realize someone is fake, they feel compelled to confront, to unmask, to demand accountability. But Jung would remind us that the persona is a defense mechanism, deeply tied to the unconscious. Most people will not abandon it because someone else points it out. They will cling to it until they themselves are ready to face their shadow. That's why confrontation often ends in denial or hostility. Instead, Jung's method is quieter, gentler, but more powerful. You step back. You reduce your emotional investment. You maintain politeness, but you no longer give them access to your energy, your secrets, your trust. You leave them with their mask while you move toward authenticity. This is not weakness. It's wisdom. It spares you unnecessary conflict and preserves your energy for the relationships that truly matter. The fifth lesson is to embrace solitude as a friend. Jung often emphasized that people fear solitude because it strips away the distractions of the persona. But solitude is where authenticity grows. When you can be alone without fear, when you can face your own shadow without needing a mask, you become far less susceptible to fake people. Why? Because you no longer fear rejection. You no longer crave constant approval. You can stand on your own, and from that strength, you can choose your connections wisely. Imagine this shift. Instead of clinging to relationships out of fear of being alone, you begin to see solitude as a space of clarity. You sit with your thoughts, your emotions, your shadow, and you integrate them. Then, when you step into the world, you no longer look for someone else to complete you. You look for people who resonate with the authenticity you've already found within yourself. This is how you break the cycle of attracting fakery, by becoming whole on your own. The sixth lesson is to practice discernment without bitterness. Not every mask is malicious. Some people wear personas out of insecurity, fear, or habit. They may not even realize they are doing it. Jung believed that compassion and discernment must work together. You can recognize someone as fake without hating them. You can distance yourself without resentment. This balance protects your heart from hardening. It allows you to see the humanity even in those who deceive, while still protecting your own authenticity. The seventh lesson is to remember that detecting fake people is ultimately about protecting your soul. Jung spoke often of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming your true self. Fake people, left unchecked, pull you away from that journey. They distract you with illusions, drain your energy with performances, and keep you entangled in shallow drama. But when you learn to see through them, you free yourself to focus on what truly matters: your growth, your purpose, your authentic relationships. Every mask you see through is a step toward greater clarity in your own life. So let's bring this home. Detecting fake people in your life is not about paranoia. It's not about labeling everyone as false or retreating from society. It's about awareness. It's about noticing the masks, the projections, the inconsistencies, and choosing how much of your energy you give to them. It's about trusting your intuition, respecting your own boundaries, and living so authentically that fakery loses its grip on you. Remember the image we started with. People as books, some with dazzling covers and shallow stories, others with plain covers hiding depth and truth. Jung's method is like learning to read beyond the cover, to feel the weight of the pages, to sense the story inside. With practice, you no longer get fooled by the gloss. You begin to recognize the difference between performance and authenticity, between illusion and truth. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all is this. The more authentic you become, the less you even need to detect fake people. They simply drift out of your orbit, unable to thrive in the presence of truth. What remains are the genuine connections, the people who meet you without masks, the relationships that nourish rather than drain. This is the gift of Jung's psychology, not just protection from fakery, but freedom to live a life rooted in authenticity. So as you leave this video, carry with you these questions. Where in your life are you tolerating fakery? Where are you ignoring your intuition? And most importantly, where are you still wearing your own mask? Because the journey to detecting fake people always begins with the courage to remove your own. When you dare to live without a mask, you begin to see clearly. And in that clarity, fake people lose their power and your true life begins.